I'm Dr. Mike Ellis. I'm an orthodontist in the Northern Virginia area, and basically, I'm a product of a military family. Spent most of my life traveling around the world, and ended up as Virginia as my last stop. Did most of my college in Virginia. Went out to Kansas City for my orthodontics residency, and when it came time to go back into practice, I knew I was going to come back where my entire family was at, which was right here. So I finished my residency. I came back to Northern Virginia. I purchased a practice from an orthodontist that had been practicing for about 37 years. And it was a good practice with good bones, but needed a whole lot of business TLC to make it grow. And so that's what I spent the better part of about the first 8-9 years of my career doing, which was practicing orthodontics, learning the ropes, and fixing a lot of things that weren't great in the practice. Him and I worked together that entire time, and as he got closer and closer to retirement, I knew that I was going to need a second doc, being that at that point I had 3 locations. And so I reached out to Dr. Megan Lindgren, who was a class ahead of me in my ortho residency, and she sold her practice in Kansas and moved her entire family out to Northern Virginia and joined me in 2012. And we've been working together ever since. We have taken the practice from 3 offices to now 4 offices. We added the 4th office in the beginning of 2023, and in late 2022, we decided to add yet another doc, Dr. Rebecca Lee, to our practice. And so now we've got 3 docs, 4 offices, and we're rocking the house up there in Northern Virginia, having a good time. I look back at my practice, and the time that I was having the most fun was at the beginning. When I originally took it over and was putting all those systems in place, it was a very small practice that I'd taken over from a financial standpoint, had a lot of things wrong from a business strategy. So it was nice to come in and infuse systems and good business practices and, watch the practice grow at 20-25% a year. Like that's the fun time when basically everything that you do works and your time isn't being pulled 20 different directions. I kind of always say that I'm kind of the captain of the ship to a certain degree. And at the time I was basically in a very, very small boat. As the practice grew, it gets harder to steer that ship. And the practice, you spend a lot more of your time doing the things that you don't want to do, which is HR, business management, accounting, marketing plans, strategizing. And it kind of pulled me away from the time to be able to focus on what the practice needed in the behind the scenes stuff of getting to meet with docs and spending more time with patients and really doing the part of orthodontics that I enjoyed. And so, it started to get to the spot where we're like, okay, well, we need to do things differently, but we don't have the time to do it. And I was starting to lose some of the love for my profession. And I started saying, well, what's the way out of this? How do we get back to being able to do the things that I enjoyed doing? And so I had been a Kane Waters client for many, many years. And on one of my visits out to Kane Waters, we had told them in advance that this was some struggles that we were having. And they said, well, let us go ahead and introduce you to a group that can maybe, pitch you some ideas of some different directions that you could go. And so Brett Pierce and 7 Pillars came in to give us a presentation to really listen to what our struggle and pain points were, to hear kind of what we were trying to do and to find out whether or not they could help and if there was anything that they could do to facilitate this. And at the end of that conversation, we definitely thought that a pathway that we were never even really thinking about, which was to transition into a partnership with a DSO, was something that we wanted to consider. And so 7 Pillars created a fairly low cost exploration technique that we could go through in order to be able to find out whether or not this was the direction that we wanted to go. It was convenient for 7 Pillars to come in, but just because Kane Waters said, this group is affiliated with us, we still did our due diligence and looked around and said, well, what else is out there as far as companies to broker and make introductions and everything. So we still did our research. We still hopped online and looked at different companies and what they had to offer and everything. And the reality is 7 Pillars, They not only had the relationships with the big folks, they understood what we wanted, they were listening, but their financial structure over some of the other companies of how they work out, their fee structure, what they bring to it and everything, it made sense. It was simple, it was straightforward, it had very defined parameters to everything, and it was kind of what we wanted. Like I'm not a big fan of creating ridiculously complicated things that drag on for years and years. They provided a service with a pretty transparent fee, and we went from there. I reached out to a couple of my colleagues that had worked with Seven Pillars and just kind of asked for what their 2 cents were, and I didn't get a lot of anything but fantastic feedback. People were very happy with them. They did a lot of protecting for us. These companies, when you start to deal with them, you're dealing with some people in business development that are very good at talking to people, and you're also dealing with analysts that are there to gather information a certain way, and it can be a tough process for the doc when you're still trying to run your practice and do everything else. Seven Pillars was really good at stepping in and saying, look, bring certain requests to us and let us work those, and the stuff that we can't get, we'll present it to the docs so that we can get the information for you guys. So it's a time-consuming process no matter how you do it, but having that layer of a buffer zone and protection and somebody to kind of be in between the two groups to facilitate the whole thing was pretty important. Their team was pretty cohesive. Like any email that went out to everybody. So I didn't have to do a lot of repeating myself within the Seven Pillars family. I can't say that was always the case with some of the organizations that we were talking to. And again, that was one of the things that they tried to be that buffer is, you would talk to one analyst, they would gather a bunch of information, and it was like the next person was just given a list and he was going to go down that list no matter what. And some of those questions had already been answered. So their team getting in there and saying, look, we don't need to do this over and over again. We can gather. So as information was gathered, it was like they put it all in a centralized location so that when those requests came down the road, they were able to say, we already have the answers to these things and we'll forward those things along. And okay, this is a new question. We'll pass that along to the docs to be able to get that information. So no, Seven Pillars did a great job. Even when we got to the portion of working with all the attorneys, they were very adamant of making sure that everybody was kept in the loop so that we didn't spend all of our time repeating ourselves and reiterating ourselves as we went through this process. So that was very nice. Deciding to go this direction, really, it's a personal decision. You have to look at, I tell everybody, if you're just going in because you're seeing dollar signs and stuff like that, it's probably not the right direction for you. Like for us, we still wanted to grow the practice. We still wanted it to be on a huge upward trajectory. We were just running out of the personal and time resources to be able to make that happen. And that's where some of these organizations come in. They can take off of your plate a lot of the stuff that you are just literally burning hours of your life up during the day, during your lunches, after hours. They can take those things off your plate so that you can get back to doing what you do best. I was always told that the most productive orthodontic practice is the one where the orthodontist comes to work and does orthodontics all day. The more time that the doctor's spending doing all the other stuff, it just burns them out from being able to do the things that they're great at and drags the productivity of the practice down. So, if you're still growth oriented, if you're still looking for that forward trajectory, I think this model is a fantastic one. I look at how much free time I have now compared to what I did 4 months ago, and it's my home life is starting to open up a lot. I'm having time when my work finishes to come home and do more with my family or do things that I haven't done for myself in a very, very long time, because I was always tied up with the practice. So that's been a huge plus, and I think that's only going to get better as we go forward. Yeah, my experience with Seven Pillars was fantastic. even working with Brett, I'm one of those individuals that can, again, I can work through a lot of stuff. I can carry a lot of stuff on my back. But at the same time, when things get me, uptight, I can get frustrated really quick. And Brett was great to be able to step in and have those personal conversations, to be able to put things in focus and perspective, and be able to kind of bring things back in both sides, make it such that when one side was starting to stray away, bring everybody back. He had a very, very good diplomatic way of keeping everybody focused and happy, and seeing what the ultimate goal was getting to close, and that we were all going to have to work together at the end of this whole thing. So it's a very great situation in the end, but it's a very high stress process to go through. I would tell anybody that's looking to go into this that it's going to be some more stressful months in your life as you work through the particulars of it. Selling a business it's not easy. It's not quick. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it, and having folks that have done it before, know what to expect, have good legal representation, have good folks to be able to understand and give you a full overlook of what's coming down the road, was absolutely invaluable. And so, that's what I truly took away. You can go in there and look at all the little things that Seven Pillars did. They checked all the boxes. Everything that they told us they were going to do, they did. And at no point in time did we ever really feel as though we weren't getting what we were expecting. And they've always told us that just because we've closed doesn't mean that they're out of our life. Like, at any point down the road, if anything needs to be discussed with regards to any of the contracts that were done, they're still there for us. So they're not just do their deal and disappear. They're there. They're part of your life as long as you want them to be. So that's a nice peace of mind to have, to know that we always got their phone number. We know that they're going to be there should we need them.